Welcome, everyone, to Rupp Pfalzgraf's Empire State Entrepreneurs and New York Business Law podcast, a really fun and informative forum for us to showcase our clients, strategic partners, and community leaders to talk about relevant issues for entrepreneurs and business owners throughout New York. My name is David Pfalzgraf, and it's a real privilege for me to be the managing partner of Rupp Pfalzgraf, a full-service law firm headquartered right here in downtown Buffalo in the historic Liberty Building. And before we get to our special guest, I wanted to take a moment just to thank Mike and Eric and all of our friends at Incept for hosting us in this one-of-a-kind studio here in Buffalo. My firm has been using Incept for a number of years now, and they just do a great job for us. It's a partnership that we value a tremendous deal, and they're allowing us to use their studio is not lost on me and very much appreciated. So thanks to those guys at Incept as well. And so with that, I'm excited to welcome my good friend, Dr. Len Kaplan, to the show. Len is the owner of OWM Integrated Wellness, a concierge primary care, integrative medicine, and functional medicine facility located right here in Buffalo on Delaware Avenue. Len, welcome to the show.
Dave, it's a pleasure. Thanks, man.
No problem. And I can speak firsthand about some of the neat things that Len is doing at his company there on Delaware Ave. But before we get to that, I'm actually a little bit intrigued. I've spent a ton of time with Dr. Kaplan, but I must admit I don't fully know his background, going back to his educational days and sort of how he got started in the practice of medicine. So I thought it might be helpful for our listeners, Len, and certainly for me as the host of this podcast, to hear a little bit about your early stages of your career.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's kind of always been interested in medicine. My dad's a doc. I think that was an inspiration to me. And then kind of had probably one of the few individuals that always knew what they wanted to do from early on. So from high school, I was in a pre-med program in Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and went on to college, pre-med, and then I was also very interested in the human body and kind of the completeness of the beauty of the movement of the body. So there was this inclination of studying the motion, the movement, the physicality of the person, and then just how the body works as a whole. So I had that from the very, very beginning. So when it came time to pick medical schools, the osteopathic schools were more appealing because they were more comprehensive and they were more holistic in that way, right? Just taking care of the entire person, sure. Mind, body, the whole thing, There was a hands-on component, which I loved. I'm a very hands-on individual, so the manual treatments are part of osteopathic education. And so that took me to Chicago. When I was picking Chicago versus other cities, it was the blues that blew me away.
I love it.
So I was growing up in New York. You don't really get blues. It's more like jazz, but oh my God, my brother-in-law who's from Chicago took me to Kingston Mines. That changed my life. I mean, I couldn't see the stage past 3 feet because of the smoke. But I'm coming to Chicago. It didn't even have much to do with the school. I mean, I loved the school as well. But it came together. I had an amazing experience in Chicago. Loved Chicago. Great medical training. A lot of hands-on work. A lot of inner-city work, so just a lot of compassion, and that kind of stuff. Just great experience. And then I needed to, when I entered medical school, I needed to figure out how to pay for my medical school training because it was expensive even then. And the military was an option. And I also had like a little bit of do something for the country kind of streak, and then, so it kind of felt gratifying in a lot of different ways. So I entered the military program where they paid for your medical school, paid for your tuition, for room and board, and then you had to give some time back. So after 4 years of medical school, throughout my medical school, there was at least 1 to 3 months a year that I had to go and work in military hospitals, which was amazing, by the way. I worked at Walter Reed.
Wow.
I was there during Black Hawk Down. I don't know if you know that whole story where the Americans got ambushed in Ethiopia. I was on an orthopedic floor. I think I always tell people we slept about 3 days out of that month.
Incredible.
But it was an experience you could never replace, And then after, it was then the way it works in medicine, in the education, is that you have med school, then you have kind of an internship and residency together. Internship is yet another pathway where you get a chance to figure out what you want to do. I actually thought I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon at the time. I was looking for one of the better programs. And then, again, I'm a very outdoorsy individual too, so it was this choice between Walter Reed and then Madigan, which is a brand new hospital in Washington State. So I actually was gunning for Walter Reed because it was number 1 rated internship program, and I had the grades to get in. But then when I went to Washington State, again, another one of those life-changing experiences, the mountains, the water, the focus, the surgeons are known to be very, very hard-driven and very hardcore, just work. And I remember in my first rotation, first day, rotating through the ward at 5:30 in the morning, and the sun comes up, all the windows are facing Mount Rainier.
Pretty cool.
And the chief resident goes, let's just stop for a moment and admire the mountain. And I'm like, I'm coming to Madigan, So that's my life, From there, I actually went to Germany. I served for 4 years as a general medical officer. I spent a year in Bosnia taking care of troops there as a doc and taking care of locals there, Bosnian and Serbians. Decided, had time to think about my career path, decided that ortho was not holistic enough, and I then switched to physical medicine and rehabilitation, got into a residency at the University of Washington, got out of the military, finished that, and then came to Buffalo to do a final year of training in interventional spine and sports medicine.
And where was that?
That was with Mike Geraci, who started the group, and Fred McAdam. That was at Buffalo Spine and Sports Medicine. And that's the journey. And
you haven't left Buffalo since?
I haven't left Buffalo. I fell in love with it.
I love it. You and so many others.
Yeah.
What an incredible background, Len. And I hadn't, until you were speaking, I had forgotten the military service and sort of you performing your craft around the world in various locations, including in territories where it wasn't always friendly to be in. So I so appreciate your service and that journey that led you all over the world, but ultimately to Buffalo. And walk me through then the time frame when you came here to start working at Buffalo Spine.
Yeah. So came for a year fellowship. Had no intention of staying in Buffalo because I was looking for a bigger city closer to the water somewhere, but fell in love with Buffalo within about 4 or 5 months of being here. We had 3
Early
kids.
2000s, was it?
Oh, that was 2003. 2003. Okay. And then I was offered a partnership with Buffalo Spine and Sports right out of the gate, which is kind of rare. We decided to settle down, in Buffalo after that.
And tell me about the early days at Buffalo Spine and Sport. What type of work were you doing? And
so it was sports medicine, but conventional based, meaning that it was, there was a lot of, I think it was well done medicine. There was a lot of very, very, what I would say, precision based, applications of how to rehab individuals, but there were also a lot of procedures. So the procedures were pain management procedures. They included steroid injections for spine, or joints, but it was always combined with a more holistic approach of them then putting the person back together. So it wasn't just a shot, see you later. What attracted me to Buff Spine is that, yeah, we can give you an injection, but then let's take care of the whole person to try to figure out the root cause, which was some kind of a physical breakdown. So that was always appealing.
As you think about the days that you spent at Buffalo Spine and Sport, did you begin to read about or learn about some of the trends that were happening in medicine, and did that sort of inform your decision to think about making a move from Buffalo Spine and Sport?
Yeah, I mean, it was a journey, it was a kind of an emotional journey. It was a cognitive kind of journey. And it was a combination of the way that the medicine started to change very quickly through that process. It wasn't just the kind of medicine that I started doing, but it was also the environment that I was working in. And the environment became very toxic in the way that the reimbursement from the medicine we were practicing was getting cut so drastically and so rapidly, and without any control left to the business owner. So come January 1, the insurance company will say, we just cut your rates 30%. You still have overhead. You still have employees.
Right, go figure.
Figure it out, right? And so then you were forced to, and every physician listening out there can relate to this, hire more extending providers, which are PAs and nurse practitioners, and then all of a sudden, all of the heart work, the getting to know the person, the relationships, were out the window. The money was in procedures, so now you find yourself, you're just a technician, you're doing procedures hour after hour after hour. Your PAs that have minimal training, 2 years of training, are taking care of all the patients, and they are the ones that have those relationships. But by the way, now you're seeing so many people just to keep the doors open that no one has relationships with anybody. And it got to the point where I realized I didn't know any of my patients' names. I had no idea who anyone was anymore. I was just doing it. Became a needle jockey, which I never wanted to do. And I started to kind of try to position our group to be more holistic, but it was just too little too late. And I felt that the only way for me to do what I love doing, which was take care of people and have relationships with people and practice good medicine, was to just leave and create a concierge or a cash-based practice where the insurance companies had no mandate over me of how to run my world, basically. Now, part of that was just always that interest and passion in natural, holistic kind of medicine, where I understood the damage that steroids did to the body when they were applied over and over again. And then right about that time, to your point, you started to get access to these regenerative therapies like platelet-rich plasma, which I started doing about a couple years before I left.
Sure.
And that led to stem cell treatments. But then it also led to re-educating myself in the whole integrative medicine approach of how to understand the body on a deeper level, a more functional, more holistic level as well. So it's been quite a journey.
So you end up launching OWM around 2014.
Yep.
And tell me, leading up to that point, 2012, 2013, your frustration is growing with sort of the traditional approach to medicine for the reasons you just explained. Had you thought about owning and operating your own business before? Or was it invigorating or exciting or nerve-wracking all at the same time?
So my wife would say that every time we tend to figure it out, I tend to come in and mess it all up, right? So that's my tendency. So just as we feel financially stable, just as we get a routine, I come in and break it all up, right? So,
A true entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. So we were comfortable, but I wasn't comfortable. And when I asked myself a question, it was an act of desperation, but also an act of hope and an act of rebirth all at the same time. I just knew I couldn't do what I did. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And we lived in the suburbs of Clarence, and my wife and I would walk for hours just talking about the next step, just hours of that brainstorming and just emotional purging, And I quit my practice before I knew what I was going to do. That was the act of desperation.
That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. I got to the point, and it was interesting how that happened. I was a managing partner for a year in that group, and I knew I wasn't successful at that, and I couldn't take the group where I wanted to go for many reasons. And I resigned as a managing partner, but then when I went to a good friend of mine who was there at the time, and I said, I just want you to know I'm no longer a managing partner. He looked at me and goes, "Are you leaving?" And I said, "No, I'm not leaving. I just resigned as a managing partner." And then within 5 minutes of me walking from his office to the door, I said, "I am leaving." It was like a revelation. It was amazing. And that was it. And I resigned the next day, which
incredible.
is
incredible. Gutsy, crazy.
Right, exactly.
And that was, so tell me about the early days at OWM and how that idea became a reality for you.
So my staff will tell me that I have this amazing gift of manifesting and just making it happen. So I remember when my wife Beth and I were walking, I said, I want to be holistic. I want to do regenerative medicine. But one of the things I want to do is take care of entrepreneurs and business owners. That was 2014, 13. So I always had this, I had certain specific things that I knew I wanted, and then I just had to figure out how to get there. So we started a practice. It was 1 or 2 days a week. I was still working at my other group, and it was kind of slowly transitioning. And I was doing some basic regenerative medicine. I was starting to do some integrative medicine. And then we're starting to help people, So the word of mouth spread. Initially it was more procedure-based. But as I started doing these procedures, I already kind of knew it, but it just reinforced the fact that I can't just treat a knee. I can't just treat a back. I have a whole person in front of me. What's their lifestyle? What's their diet? What are their hormones doing? Because if I didn't do that, then whatever the treatment I did to their knee or their back just wasn't going to work well. So I needed to know more about them, and it's more rewarding because that's the relationship piece. So I actually did a fellowship in integrative medicine through A4M, which is a big training school and group. They do a lot of continuing education and seminars, and that started that piece, and I started combining that with the procedural side of things. And then, people were coming. I've been really lucky and, fortunate that we've grown probably about 15% every year since the inception.
That's great,
including the COVID years, which is amazing.
And the original facility was located?
It was on Main Street in Clarence. I was subleasing from another doc who was an osteopath as well. He was semi-retired. He actually went to Florida. I was just using his office. And then we grew enough, and I knew that I needed to be in an area that was more central, where I had a little bit more, and I also knew that I wanted more access to business owners downtown and people that were entrepreneurs and were like-minded. And I just knew I had that passion of helping people that were busy and stressed and running their own lives and, had control of their own destinies. And I wanted to help them, because I was one of them, and I figured downtown was a better location for that, So we found a spot, which was at the time a hole in the ground, but it became Delaware North Building, right? Through Montante Uniland. And when that building was going up, we were building our space on Elmwood. And then in 2016, we moved. And that's really when the practice took off. Because I was pretty small and pretty slow up until then. But when we moved, just more traction, more marketing, and everything just started to slowly grow and kind of snowball.
I think it was around that time that I remember meeting you for the first time, and like has happened so many times now for you, Len, I remember I had a squash-related injury, and someone said, rather than doing the traditional route, which was go to my primary care physician at GP and get the referral, and they said, you got to go see Dr. Kaplan. I said, well, who is Dr. Kaplan? Why do I have to go see Dr. Kaplan? And I remember meeting with you, and yes, you said you could help me. I think it was a knee or a calf issue that I was dealing with. And I remember you saying, I can help you solve that problem, but that's like table stakes. I'd rather know more about why you're passionate about playing squash, or why you want to, maintain a high level of, competitive fire in any sport or activity you're doing, running or whatever your passion is. That it was as important, if not more important to you, Len, that we were going to do a deeper dive than just let's solve the problem. Let's learn more about what the root cause of the problem was than just making it go away. And that's when I first started to learn more about your sort of holistic approach to medicine and mental health, nutrition, physical well-being, and ever since I tell people proudly that I don't think I've been sick. I haven't had a cold, a cough. Anytime I've been bumped and bruised, it's really nice to have a concierge doctor who can who knows my composition. Whether it's blood or history, and it's nice to finally have someone that I can sort of grow up with and know that I can rely on. So I remember those early days and
great.
On Wood Avenue in the Delaware North building there, and I think over time it became clear you were running out of space and jammed all your techs and nurses and Beth and everybody else in that space, but it worked and it worked really well. But I'm curious when you got the sense that maybe you needed to expand both the physical location you were in to get more square feet, but also that might allow you then to also offer different types of programs or treatments that maybe you were constrained from doing in the current location. So when did that second light bulb go off that said, I've got something pretty cool here, pretty unique, pretty special, but I think I can double down on this. I think I can sort of try to grow it in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
Do you remember when
No, I think probably right around, so we moved in 2016, and I would probably say probably around 2019 or 20, I started to realize that and it was kind of before we really were running out of space, but there were two things. I have this very an independent streak that I don't like to be kind of beholden to anybody, and I don't like paying rent. And I'm like, I got to have my own equity. So that was one piece. I knew it was a better business decision to own property at some point. So that was one piece. Because of that, of course, there's a lot of smart kind of business related aspects to that. But I also knew I was going to need much more space. So I just had faith in the practice. I saw the way it was going. I saw that we were offering something very unique and very special, and that people wanted it, And the more, when I left Buffalo Spine and Sports, I wrote a little blog on LinkedIn about what happened to medicine and what I think is happening to medicine, and I kind of said, there's going to be a point where the patients will never see their doctors anymore. They're going to see extenders. They're not going to know their doctors' names, And that's all come to fruition. That's exactly what's happening. It's gotten worse, And of course, when traditional medicine starts to fail, I get busier. Right?
No,
because people they need that care. People want relationships. People want connections. Who wants to be thrown out of the building after 5 minutes with getting no answers, and feeling like you're just a number? Who likes that, So we were growing just because I knew I had a very workable model of just serving people the right way, caring for people the right way, So I saw that trend. You can look back and see that we've been growing, and I started looking for property. I actually approached one of the people through Vistage, probably one of callbacks, and we became friends with. And I said, we had a conversation Sunday morning. I said, I'm looking for property, and he started helping me. Then COVID happened, everything kind of was put on hold, and then we started looking afterwards again for a piece of property. So it was knowing that I needed to do more clinically, and I needed space for it, and it was also knowing that I needed to own my own piece of land, so to speak.
How did you then begin to focus on 891 Delaware, and when did that
It was happenstance, it was kind of, it's just funny when you think of just things falling into place. It's crazy, So we sold our place in Clarence, and the market was hot, downtown Buffalo. We didn't know Buffalo well, downtown Buffalo. So we decided to rent. And we ended up on Oakland, which was a block from 891 Delaware. So we're living there now, and we're driving by this place, and we're walking by this place, and it's locked up, and it looks abandoned, and what is going on, right? This is this amazing piece of property. So after maybe 3-4 months of seeing this place, we started to inquire. Back through callbacks, he found the owner of the place. He was not selling. but he wasn't doing anything with it. It's been locked up and abandoned for 7+ years.
Wow.
And we started talking, and he was a little picky of who he was going to sell to, but he happened to be kind of a biohacker at heart himself, so like-minded spirits. So he's like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. When I told him what I wanted to do, like, yeah, let's do this. So, he sold me the place. That's how it happened. So everything kind of just happens for a reason. It's been an amazing journey of just things falling into place.
And the facility is second to none, and I can speak from personal experience and would encourage all of our listeners to go take a tour at some point. But I know that end product, Len, took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of risk. It wasn't always easy. Can you talk about sort of the resiliency and perseverance and patience that you and Beth had to sort of lead with in order to pull off this incredible journey?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's the partnership of husband and wife, I think, is just completely irreplaceable. Like, I don't think I could have pulled this off without Beth.
I have no doubt about that.
It's just, so I think I could never even, understate that in any way. But there's this drive in me that sometimes gets me in trouble that just never allows me to quit. It's one of those things. It's been from my childhood years. And I remember when I was starting our practice, I was following LinkedIn, and I was on LinkedIn, and then someone shared an article that said, or a piece of information that something like 95% of businesses fail within 6 months of starting. And I wrote back and I said, not me. That's it.
That's all I said.
I said, not me, right? So I already knew it. I'm not giving up. I don't care, right? Like, and sometimes I've said it's like a rope-a-dope thing, like the Muhammad Ali, where he would get beat up and then the guy tire the other guy out and then come out and just finish it. And that's kind of me. I just have to last another round until something kind of comes my way. And then I come out of the corner and start fighting again, So sometimes I've retrenched, sometimes I've attacked. But I've always endured, the tolerance for just stress and just keep pushing. And no matter how hard it is, you get up the next day and just keep going, And I think that's the recipe for success, right? Like never giving up.
As you reflect on what you've built now on Delaware, was that in line with your original vision, or has it even sort of exceeded your expectations, Len, to what this has turned into at this point?
It's exceeded my expectations. I mean, I never hoped to have been so fortunate to be able to, first of all, obtain such an amazing piece of property. I never could have obtained such a piece of property anywhere but in Buffalo. I mean, the expense. I mean, there's no partners. I don't have investors. I'm a single doctor. There's no other earners. For me to be able to do that, it's miraculous. And I feel so fortunate. Plus, it's a piece of history. To be a steward of part of Buffalo's history in its own right is such a gift.
So meaningful, I'm sure.
Right? So
such
meaningful.
A dual purpose for
1903 building, we were able to restore it. We put a lot of love and care into that building. There's so many ways that I'm so grateful, And, but, once I see that I'm there, then immediately I'm like, okay, what's the next step? And what's the next step? So that ambition of keeps driving and driving and driving, paired with just this insatiable appetite for learning and innovating. And so my staff, the most common thing they tell me is slow the heck down.
I believe that.
You're killing us, right? We just learned one thing, and I'm like, I can't slow down, but you got to at some point,
Are there doctors that you follow or that you think are trendsetters nationally or internationally in this space that you're in today, Len?
I follow. Yeah, I mean, I don't follow any one doc closely. I mean, there's certainly some people I respect, like Peter Attia, and I'll listen to some podcasts. I'll look, but what I do is I absorb techniques and strategies from multiple sources, and I tend to be more of a conference And I tend to learn more from going to conferences and seminars than from like podcasts, that kind of stuff, or books. When I go there, I get to see these people present that are experts in their field, and there's so many, But then you get to see the individual present, right? And then you get to talk to them afterwards, And I've done that. This is how I brought so many techniques back, and I went from working with and getting to know experts in their fields within the United States to now overseas. I have a relationship with a German company that makes lasers, therapeutic lasers. I'm now a speaker for them. I now have connections with integrative doctors in Egypt who develop their own techniques. So I love that. We know that we are a small world anyway at this point. We're so connected. But to be able to bring best of medicine that's practiced and now not just within the different parts of the United States, but different parts of the world is so gratifying.
It's pretty remarkable how small the world has become.
It's incredible.
We can learn from doctors in Egypt and elsewhere. And I was going to lead with this because I was most excited for our listeners to hear about some of the programs and some of the offerings that you have. But as you think about Delaware Ave, can you give our listeners a sense of just how comprehensive the nature of the services you offer and the treatments? It's easy for our listener and for me originally to think about concierge medicine. And believe me, it's all that that I've experienced and more with you, Dr. Kaplan. But I don't think that there's a ton of people locally, at least, that realize some of the amazing and unique offerings that come together with this concierge medicine program that you are developing and continue to refine. But give us a sense of all that is housed under the roof at Delaware Ave, and how all of our listeners could potentially benefit from some of the services you provide.
Yeah, so as you said, I think it starts with this concept of concierge, right? So everything is built on that. That's foundation, When I was learning about integrative medicine, first I got a book on integrative medicine. Chapter 1 was optimal healing environment. He didn't even start talking about people, right? Like for the person to feel like they're healing, they have to be in a facility, in a place that makes them feel like they're going to heal, which is incredible. So architecturally, right, and just environmentally, that's always been so important to me, So that's the place, and that's another reason why Delaware North 891 became that place, because it really, really fit, And then, of course, to take care of a whole individual truly, right, you have to offer an inordinate amount of services, and so it's been ongoing. And what makes the person thrive, right? Well, they have to be physically functional, which means that they have to have sound joints, sound backs, right? Sound nervous system. So procedures will come into play to that. So, and natural procedures, stem cell injections, PRP, those kind of things, all done under guidance that they're accurate, they're precise, they're safe, they're effective. What makes the human body thrive on a metabolic level? Well, hormones are important, right? Energy production is important, right? Well, how do you take care of that? Well, you got to start optimizing those functions. So there's a hormone replacement program. There's a whole intravenous program that we do with infusions that help get building blocks into the body quickly at high absorption rate to facilitate energy production, repair, right? Longevity, maintaining good oxygen levels, So there's that piece, right? So there's the procedure piece, then there's this medical piece of just working on the whole metabolic approach of optimization. There's the cognitive optimization piece, so we have programs including ketamine that help improve longevity of the brain, deter and prevent dementia and Alzheimer's. That's another, field that's so dear to my heart because it's so debilitating and so devastating when someone has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, right? And so we do that, and so all of the things I put together are with that goal. So we have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Why do we have that? Well, it improves cognition. It improves sexual drive. It improves performance. It improves VO2 max, right? Same as infusions. We're about to start, we're probably going to bring in another hyperbaric oxygen chamber. We're about to build a recovery lounge in the basement that has all these pieces as one unit, cold plunge tanks. Again, why? Well, they improve energy production. They reduce inflammation, right? They've been shown to prolong life duration, right? And lifespan, And then we have, again, what's I'm very passionate about, a whole women's program. So women's program is all about cancer prevention, breast cancer prevention. So we have preventative services. We have screening services for cancer, especially breast cancer. And then we have a recovery remission program where we help women stay in remission. I mean, we help men as well, but it's a very focused program on women. And then on top of all of that, we have an active cancer program. So we have integrative cancer where we help people get through cancer with less toxicity, more efficacy, right? And we guide them through nutrition, and we guide them through supplementation, and we administer services that work together with like the standard of care to resolve cancer faster. We've had some amazing results where we've literally obliterated colorectal cancer tumors. Like they go through our program together with the standard of care, and when they go back for colonoscopies, the tumors are gone.
It's amazing.
We've had like 4 in a row, and with the standard of care docs looking at that, they're saying, wow, that's a pretty amazing outcome. We don't usually see that. So we know it's not just them, right? It's us and them working together, I think that kind of captures it all. And then preventative programs, like, anything that will help prevent and catch disease, right? So we have preventative screens that are genetic. We administer cancer screens that are genetic to catch cancer early. And now we have Prenuvo, which is a full-body MRI scanner on our property. They are kind of guests. They rent from me, but our missions are tightly intertwined. And they offer an amazing service of scanning without radiation the whole body to catch tumors and aneurysms and such, right? So, and that's kind of the place.
It's incredible. It's really become one-stop shopping. I guess for the sake of our listeners, is there a profile of a client that you think works best for OWM? Is there an age range, or it's not, if you get injured, go see Dr. Kaplan anymore. It's no, that this is the type of individual who I know that I can help or that I appreciate working with. Is there, from your growing list of clients, sort of an age range or a profile of a clientele that you like to work with, Dr. Kaplan?
I love working with every single individual out there. That's always been the marketing challenge. Like, how do you market to everybody? But we truly take care of from probably 12 to 13 years of age to 96 to 98 years of age. And I love working with every group.
That's great to hear.
With every group. So young athletes, I mean, we have techniques to get these kids out playing with hardly missing a beat, which is incredible. We did a little video on YouTube of a Cortland hockey player who tore a large hip flexor tendon, who was out for the season based on his docs, who was able to go back in 2 weeks and win the cup.
Amazing.
For Cortland.
Amazing.
Right?
Amazing.
With our help. That's how gratifying is that, Again, so it's hard. I can't pigeonhole myself. I really can't. I mean, it's like anyone who's interested in function, optimization at any age is able to come and get better and benefit from our services. Yeah.
I think that's telling. I think that's not, there is no profile. It's anyone who thinks that they can benefit from these services. What does the future hold for you and 891 Delaware, Dr. Kaplan? What other things do you have your eyes on? I know from you and from Beth and your staff that you don't sleep and you don't rest, and you're going to keep pushing all of us to greater heights. But are there other products or services that you think you're going to try to wrap into OWM?
Well, we have the recovery lounge that's coming. We're going to start building in December. It's basically going to be a very high-end lounge that's going to it has 2 fireplaces. Our Delaware North building has, I think, 14 or 15 fireplaces. Delaware, 891 Delaware,
Sure.
Has about, so there are 2 downstairs. They're going to be built into this lounge. We're going to have contrast, cold, hot services. We're going to do breathwork classes down there. We're going to have a flotation table, 2 hyperbaric oxygen chambers. So anything that can be rejuvenating, restorative, without having to see a doc, where you can just kind of go in and get a day pass, we'll have that in that space to offer. Further afield, which is probably coming in about 3 to 4 years, we're going to start working on our carriage house. The carriage house is 6,000 square feet of space. And the downstairs, at least right now, my ambition is to create a Scandinavian spa with in-ground pools, hot and cold, saunas, steam rooms.
Super cool.
Like a bar, a big hot tub. Kind of mimicking on some of the places I've been and really like and enjoy. And again, there's really nothing like that in Buffalo, Upstairs, we're going to put a small gym where people can actually go and work out, and then some clinical spaces, and I still have to figure out what that's going to be, I'm very, very interested in psychedelic medicine. It's possible that when things like psilocybin become legal, we would actually offer these psilocybin journeys for people in some spaces on the second floor. I kind of have it all mapped out on my head. Now I just have to get some investors to help me develop that other part of the program.
I'm sure phase 2 is, you say, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Knowing you, it's a lot sooner down the road than that. And so I'll let you go in a minute. Just a couple final topics, although I could stay here all night with you, Dr. Kaplan, and continue to learn about ways in which all of us could, sort of prolong life and have, healthy and a lot of vitality. And I feel good energy when I spend time with you and when I'm at 891 Delaware. But it didn't always come easy. You're driven, you're ambitious. I think your curiosity is unique. Your resiliency, clearly, in pulling off this amazing, one-of-a-kind facility at 891 Delaware is profound. But there must have been some, challenges or tough lessons learned along the way, or things you would have done differently. But for our entrepreneur listeners, or times aren't always great, and I wonder if you could give us some insight into whether you ever did feel as though it was you against the world, or some lessons you learned over the last 5 years as you built out this facility.
Yeah, and I feel kinship with yourself and other entrepreneurs that I work with, and I think we all share the trait of just never taking no for an answer. I mean, honestly, that's probably the biggest thing. It's just, I've had just a very quick example. We were looking and doing historic credits for our building, and I was told no 3 times.
Wow.
And I didn't accept the no. And I finally got a person that said yes, and now it's paying off in spades, But it's that believing in tomorrow and believing in yourself. And I think anything's possible when you do it. It sounds so cliched, but that's an entrepreneurial spirit, right? So you get beat down, you get up the next day and just keep doing it all over again,
That's such a good example of really pushing boundaries and no, and you didn't take that as gospel. You kept looking into, you kept pushing, you kept talking and listening, and finally you got the answer that you knew by your gut and your intuition was the right answer. And I think that's such an important and valuable lesson for an entrepreneur who faces roadblocks and gets a lot of no answers, but doesn't sort of take that and say that that's going to be their fate. Instead, they're going to push things until they get an angle or an answer that is the one that they're looking for. So that's a really, I think, good trait or good lesson learned for a business owner and an entrepreneur. So, well, I'll let you go now, but before I do, clinician extraordinary doctor, entrepreneur, pushing health in Buffalo in such a unique way, such an inspiring way. Tell our great listeners something about you or about Beth, or a place you guys like to go together, or some unknown fact about Dr. Kaplan.
Yeah, I love certain things that give me like pure joy. One is scuba diving. So I actually just came back from Maldives Islands. I did some diving there. It was incredible. And I love hiking and skiing. So my ideal like leisure time, if I could do a dive trip a year and a ski trip a year and put some hiking in between, I'm a happy camper. That's my bliss.
I believe that. Well, Dr. Kaplan, I know you're busy. I so appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend it here with me in this cool podcast studio. And I look for great things coming out of OWM and 891 Delaware, and wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
It was great. Yeah.